Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, this episode is going to be very interesting. I say that about all of my episodes because it's true. They are 100% interesting, and you should watch every single one of them. The main topic was actually a challenge proposed to me, but, I mean, you kind of, it was a hard challenge to do because, you see, first, we'll get to that when we get to that. Before we get to that, let's get right into the news. The first story comes from New Jersey. Progressives file suit that eliminates the party line on ballots. In a move they say is designed to return democratic power to the voters of New Jersey and away from politically connected party bosses, a coalition of progressive organizations and candidates has joined a landmark lawsuit to force reforms in New Jersey's elections by limiting the influence county party leaders exert in drawing ballots in favor of particular candidates. For decades, New Jersey's county parties have exercised an iron grip on New Jersey elected officials, from congressperson to state legislator to township to councilperson, by wielding control over who gets the coveted party line to give these chosen candidates an unfair advantage in the polls. The practice violates the United States Constitution and must be reformed according to a lawsuit filed to the United States District Court for the District of New Jersey. Now, some of you might not know what we're talking about, considering you might not live in New Jersey or live in any other state like such. I would reckon a majority of you live in a state that has a somewhat fairer ballot, but for those who do not know, let me explain. In New Jersey, the way their ballot is structured is built in a way that they give preferential treatment to specific candidates, the coveted party line, as they stated. The way it works is that the offices are actually listed horizontally, so it's like candidate A, candidate B, candidate C, listed from left to right. Then under them, it's a second thing, like President, House, Senate, etc., etc. The way New Jersey's ballot works is that they build it so that the candidates that they want to win gets listed in the first row, so that you can just go, so like most uninformed voters can just go dot, 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 dot. For example, I have the 2020 Democratic ballot right here, and here's how the ballot is structured. Okay, so office title, President, Senate, House, County Clerk, member for the board, and membership of the Township Committee. Okay, so here's how it is for the President. Joseph R. Biden, space, Bernie Sanders, empty spaces. For the Senate, it's Cory Booker, Larry Hamm, then empty spaces. For the House for District 4, the House seat, Stephanie Schmidt, space, Christine Conforti, and David Applefield. You have 2 empty spaces for the candidates that you don't want to win. Angela Abez Anderson, empty spaces. Basically, you see my point. Biden, Booker, Schmidt, they are in one line, top to bottom. Meanwhile, all the other candidates they don't want get put in separate lines, and in a way that doesn't even make sense. There's a space between Bernie and Biden, and there are 2 spaces between Stephanie Schmidt and her 2 opponents. And progressives are saying, yeah, this is screwed up. Please change this. And their governor has actually come forward to explicitly state that he is going to protect the party line, because that's, yippee. The thing is, of course, he wants to protect the party line because he's the establishment. He's the established person who is in the seat and wants to keep the status quo the same it is. And that's how, things are. In North Carolina, the ballot's structured in a different way. It's structured based on candidates. There's one whole section alone for president, and then one whole section alone for House and Senate and whatever. But basically, let's see. We'll see how this goes. Will the progressives win and able to fix New Jersey's party line? Probably not, but it's good to give it a try. We'll never know until we try. Okay, the next story is coming from one of the far-right groups, surprisingly not the Boogaloo Boys, despite the fact that it's been getting a decent number of attention in recent days. The more explicitly Nazi-oriented one, the Proud Boys. Turns out, Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys, was in the past an informer for federal and local law enforcement, reportedly working undercover for investigators after he was arrested in 2012, according to a former prosecutor and a transcript of 2014 federal court proceedings obtained by Reuters. In a Miami hearing, a federal prosecutor, FBI agent, and Tarrio's own lawyer described his undercover work as he helped authorities to prosecute more than a dozen people in various cases involving drugs, gambling, and human smuggling. Yeah, you see, this is the thing that I was wondering. I didn't read past the headers until today, so I was wondering, was he an informer for the FBI to investigate the Proud Boys, or was he an informer previously? But it turns out, yeah, he was previously an FBI informant. And then he joined the Proud Boys of his own political volition. It's not like a COINTELPRO thing where he's investigating the Proud Boys to see what's up. And I mean, this is, some people were shocked, some people weren't shocked. I'm in the realm that's just of course I'm not shocked. This isn't shocking because this has happened before. Let me give you an example. I think I've played this in a previous podcast episode. I think maybe the one about Joe Rogan, because this is a Joe Rogan clip. But it was the Joe Rogan clip where Daryl Davis, the African-American man who frequently talks to Klansmen and tries to get them to reform their ways, he had him on an episode, and Daryl Davis explained to him, he took out a Klan robe and was like, now the thing about being in the Klan is, that doesn't pay the bills. You need to have an actual job. Look at what this Klansman's job was. Baltimore City police officer. That's a thing. People forget that that's an actual thing that happens. Police, who are more generally on the right side of the political aisle, will naturally be attracted to more right-wing movements and will, be sympathetic to them. It's kind of like a natural thing. It's like members of the military. Members of the military will naturally be more right-wing, and unfortunately will naturally be more susceptible to white supremacist groups. Unless you're a black soldier, or a soldier that is another minority. This is a fact. This isn't me, prescribing something to the military to make them seem like evil Nazis. It is a true thing. Like the KKK and other white supremacist movements, they naturally get a rise after a war ends. The most prime example being the Vietnam War. Because think about it, a bunch of, young, college-age, mostly white men signed up or were drafted to go overseas for 10 years. When they left America, whites were effectively supreme. African Americans had zero rights. Everybody walked out with a blazer, hat, and suit and tie. You could pay for college with a simple factory job. The politics of the era was incredibly right-leaning. Women were effectively just homemakers, and everything was peaceful hunky-dory. After 10 years of fighting, they came back to an America where African Americans now went to the same schools, drank from the same water fountains. Women were saying how they needed to have their own rights and their own jobs in the job market. The politics of the era was incredibly left-leaning. The music was different. Basically, the America that they left was gone, and it was never coming back. Now they're in this new country that pretty much is completely changed. It's incredibly unfamiliar. Plus, they missed a huge amount of cultural boom. Again, the music is completely different. The movies that are being shown are completely different. Did they even know that they actually made it on the moon? They missed 3 presidents. But then there's this group that they notice that wants America to go back to that same era. And they can fill that individual's head with lies and deceit on how they got to this era. Instead of saying, oh, it was just a natural progression of the cultural times, they could say, oh, the Jewish mass media tried to trick people into being into race mixing. And that's how these groups thrive. So yeah, basically it's an overall viewpoint on how these groups thrive and, the traditional right-leaningness of them. So anyways, now let's move into the story of GameStop. They might say, why are you talking about GameStop? Well, GameStop has been in a bit of an interesting thing that even I didn't necessarily understand. But luckily, there's articles that explain it for me. Basically, a bunch of Redditors decided they were going to pull a fast one on the stock market, and Wall Street got a little mad. Basically, here's what's happening. In the stock market, there are certain companies that aren't really doing so hot at the moment. GameStop, AMC, due to COVID-19, GameStop and AMC haven't really been doing so hot. Most people don't want to go in store to buy a video game, and most people don't want to go into movie theaters to begin with. These places were already dying, but, COVID-19 pretty much decided to speed up that process. Why go to a movie theater where you can get like 5 streaming services, or just 3 if you want, and just pick whatever movies you want to watch from home. Same with video games. Why go to a store where you can just buy them on Steam, or buy them on the console's eShop? So people on Wall Street have been doing something called short selling. Now it gets slightly complicated, and I'm going to have to read specific step-by-steps to explain it, because, I'm just not a good stock market person. I'm a lefty, so why would I be good at this? Basically, let's say a company, has shares at $10. You buy it for the $10. Then if the price raises to $15, you sell it and get a profit of $5. That simple, alright? This is where it gets a bit more complicated. Instead of buying and selling stocks, you borrow the stock from someone else. Now, the reason you would borrow it instead of selling it or buying it is because you predict that the stock will fail. You'll then lend that stock to someone else if you are in the mood. So when the stock rises and, drops in price, you can sell it and buy it appropriately, then give the stock back to the person you borrowed it from, but still be able to pocket the money that you yourself made of it. But this is purely based on the notion that the stock will fall in price. So Redditors decided to screw with them and instead buy like tons of stock in these companies. And this is a problem because for this thing to work, you have to lend it, and you have to lend it for a fee. And I think you actually sell like the stock that you borrow, which is, incredibly illegal. But basically, again, let's say I have a stock that I get for $10. Then the price drops to $5. I can get my stock back for $5 and then give it back to the person that gave it to me, and then I get to pocket all the money off of it. But if the stock goes up, then I'm out of luck, because that means I have to pay more money to get the stock back than I was supposed to have been lent by someone else. So here's how the stocks went. Originally, the stock for AMC was like $4. Then stock shot up to $20, and now it's $13. But GameStop is the forefront of the story, because originally the stock was $96. Now the stock has skyrocketed to $325. Effectively, a bunch of people are going to get screwed in the stock market because they were betting that it would go down, not up. And here's the thing. People have been trying to attribute it to, like, it's some sort of big advocacy thing. Like, these are people trying to spread a message. But it's not. People are trying to think that this is like 2011 Anonymous Forward. But no, it's not. It's not like that. In fact, this is like before Anonymous actually became cool. These are just a bunch of Redditors that are screwing around. It's like that scene from the Joker where they're like, Joker, are you wearing this makeup to spread a political message about these protests? And he's like, do I look like a guy who could start a movement? This isn't for like huge altruistic purposes. This is just trolls, just trollers. Now, despite the fact that this is just a bunch of trolls, people are getting a bit miffed. You see, the Biden administration has gotten a bit angry at this particular moment. Funnily enough, this episode was originally going to be like Biden's like first week contributions, but I'm like, nah, I don't care. I'm gonna wait until I don't know, maybe like a month or like 2 months. I mean, aside from like the occasional story that happens as time goes on, but we're gonna have to wait until like a month before I can give like a report card for the month or whatever. But yeah, the month's almost over. This is gonna premiere in February. I guess I'm gonna have to wait till the end of February before I can actually give that. But anyways, the Biden administration got mad. The like Wall Street executives got a bit mad. And this is even getting to the point where there's going to be a Senate hearing about this, and Sherrod Brown and AOC are basically saying like, "What? You guys been screwing the American people for years with this stock market crap. It's about time we finally regulate it. Wouldn't you agree at this point?" But yeah, that's just, I mean, it's just trolls being trolls. I mean, there's not much else you can say. It's getting big impacts, but it's just trolls being trolls. Anyways, now let's move on to some local news. First, North Carolina third party sphere. The Constitution and Green parties are gone. You see, they did not do so hot in their races that they provided, and as such, they will not be meeting the threshold to be recognized as political parties in North Carolina, and they have to try again for the 2022 elections, and all of the people that are registered under these two parties will be re-registered as independents. I mean, this article actually goes on to state, like, libertarians, they don't need to worry, because libertarians, they know how to keep their clique large enough to actually be noticeable. Joe Jorgensen and their candidate for governor did alright. Now, what does this mean? Well, I mean, it just means what it means. The two parties are just going to have to try and re-register. Get a new petition. I will say, the Green Party 100% should have ran someone for governor. They should have. They didn't, but they should have. Maybe if they did, they would have done better. Or maybe if they just ran a candidate other than Tamara Zwinnock, because she stinks. She literally tried to get me banned from Twitter, so screw her. Okay, so the last story is, again, local, but this one might be a bit more notable than we think. It might be another step in the progressive deluge. I mean, maybe. Potentially. I'm not gonna hold out yet. Jeff Jackson has announced that he will be running for Senate in 2022 against Richard Burr. Oh no, wait! Richard Burr isn't running. It will be an open seat, which has made this a target seat. From the way it's looking, it seems that this seat in Pennsylvania are going to be the two big target seats for both parties come 2022. And the parties aren't really trying to pull any punches. In Pennsylvania, we just got the revelation not that long ago that John K. Fetterman will more than likely be seeking their Senate seat, which I'm 100% supportive of, 100%. John K. Fetterman for the win. And North Carolina is a swing seat, so this could potentially flip. Literally, in all the times that I've been politically active, all three of our Senate seats have been seen as, very competitive. 2016, Deborah Ross versus Richard Burr. 2020, Cal Cunningham versus Tom Tillis. And this election cycle, Republican nominee versus Democratic nominee, because both seats will be open. I may do an independent breakdown of this seat, later, when things start getting a bit more final, or maybe just at the end of the year. But we're going to be focusing this bit on Jeff Jackson, because Jeff Jackson is interesting. You see, Jackson is one of those people that everybody knew. It seems ever since the dawn of time, people were looking at him to be like, this guy's going somewhere. They didn't know where he was going, but he was going somewhere. He was going to be a senator or a governor by the end of his life. At one point, he was going to be a senator or a governor, or he was going to at least try. With that, I think it's best that, for me and other North Carolinians, we should at least look over a little bit of his history. Jeff Jackson, he became notable, interestingly enough, on, when he was going to run for the state Senate seat and he would end up winning. He was running, and, originally he was going to run unopposed because no one would nominate his opponents, because in the way that things would work, you have to officially nominate your opponents. Jeff Jackson officially nominated his opponent to win against him. He's been notable for, like, being on the front line of, like, calling out certain Republicans for certain things. And he even showed up to work by himself during a snow day. He's tried to end gerrymandering in North Carolina, which is a huge problem. He's tried to expand pre-K programs. And he tried to repeal HB 2, which, for those who don't know, is the extremely anti-transgender bill that was introduced in the North Carolina state legislature. That was a huge controversy in the 2016 elections. Another issue he decided to be a leading figure on was to end the consent loophole in North Carolina. You see, in North Carolina, no doesn't necessarily mean no. If a woman revokes consent in the middle of, then it doesn't matter. She said yes to begin with, you get to finish. Jeff Jackson basically wants to repeal that, get rid of that. Like, that's a dumb idea. That's stupid. But Jeff Jackson has been notable enough, like I said, he's been notable enough, and he's been generally safe enough that pretty much everybody in the North Carolina political sphere has been looking at him and saying maybe he should run for Senate. He was proposed to run in the 2016 Senate seat, but he said no. Like, he said, I don't want to run. But more interestingly, which is what made him catch my eye to a degree, was that in 2020, he actually wanted to run for the Senate seat. He even went to Chuck Schumer to get his approval, because he knew that since he was going to be, like, running in, like, a very highly contested seat, it would probably be best to get on the Democratic, like, Senate's good terms to, like, stand a chance and actually move forward with the primary. And he proposed a strategy that was a strategy that has worked in North Carolina before. A 100-county campaign. Basically, throughout the entire primary, he would travel to each of North Carolina's 100 counties and do 100 town halls. Because while he is well known in North Carolina, he's not that well known. He's no Roy Cooper. So basically, he would try to get people riled up, get people's approval on his platform, so that when the general election comes, he's earned enough recognition to then rally up a huge populist campaign come the general election. Chuck Schumer responded with, nah. What we want you to do instead is to sit in a bottomless basement for the entirety of the primary, raise as much money as you can, so that we can then take that money and then use it on attack ads against Tom Tillis. Jeff Jackson, of course, didn't like that idea and said, no, I don't want to do that. So then they said, alright, buddy, guess we'll pick someone who will. And that's where Cal Cunningham entered the scene. Now that caught my attention because I'm like, oh, the establishment and him don't get on speaking terms? Oh. And it also called out the blatant corruption that happened during the 2018 election, because it's just like, they literally pushed him out of this race because they wanted the safe choice. Lo and behold, that safe choice didn't turn out to be as safe as they thought it was. Now Jeff Jackson looks like he's running on his own. I don't know if he got the DNC approval. Maybe he did behind the scenes. Or maybe he's doing this specifically to spite them. I don't know. From the way things look, looks like he's trying to do it on his own. Going with his OG plan, 100 county strategy. Worked for Terry Sanford. And the thing is, I don't know if I should support him or not. Like, I mean, he doesn't, again, it's the thing about Jeff Jackson. He's so inoffensive that the lefties like him, the people like him, everybody seems to like him. He's inoffensive enough that anybody who considers themselves like left of right, they'll probably see him as like a good candidate. Like, I mean, the Twitter followers that I respect enough to follow him are Accidentally Left Wing, Sunrise Movement, Raphael Warnock, the Piedmont DSA, NC for Bernie, Daniel Ulysses Lockwood, Robert Coroner, Nina Turner, and the ACLU. All of those people follow Jeff Jackson, but I'm not endorsing him yet, because the thing is, it's so early in his campaign, and, his issues we're like state-centered at the moment, that we don't have a national platform yet. You know, like, again, I ain't supporting him unless he supports Green New Deal, Medicare for All. Those are my top issues. Once those issues are tackled, then I'll support you. If not, I'll look for someone else who does. And that points in the direction of Erica Smith, but I don't trust her, like, at all. I find it funny, like I added Erica Smith, I'm like, I don't trust Erica Smith, and she's, like, tried to send me an article, like, oh, these anti-progressive people try to, like, disprove me. I enthusiastically supported Medicare for All, and I'm like, here's a statement of you saying you don't. 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 Any questions? I will never get over this blatant, like, what the heck moment of, like, her literally not supporting Medicare for All until the day after the election. I guarantee you that she, like, her website does not say that she supports Medicare for All until you get to a specific part of her page. There's a button, you click on it, and it takes you to a separate hidden page where it tells you she does support Medicare for All. And that button did not exist until after the election. Or at least, not until early voting began. We'll have to wait to see how things play out. Maybe Trevor Fuller jumps back in the race. Maybe Brad Miller finally takes the mantle. I don't know. But anyways, speaking of progressives and winning, now on to the main topic of this video. Progressive House seats we can win. Now, this isn't what I was going to talk about originally. Like, when I say this, I mean, like, literally, like, what I'm about to say. First, we're going to have to go over the 2021 seats. There are 4 special elections up for, election in 2024. I'm endorsing candidates in all 4, but really, of any of them, you should really only be focusing on 3. Vinny Mendoza in Louisiana District 5. He seems cool, but he's never going to win. He's an independent candidate, and he's, well, even if he was a Democrat, it wouldn't have a chance. It's a deep red seat. I endorsed him for the novelty. I have no shame in admitting that. I endorsed him for the novelty of saying I endorsed people in each of the 4 seats. I did the same thing in 2020. I endorsed all the special election seats, except for Georgia 5, I think. The one that John Lewis had, because that was a stupid election that didn't even need to happen at all. But Gary Chambers in Louisiana District 2, Antoinette Cedillo Lopez in New Mexico District 1, and Nina Turner in Ohio District 11, those 3 seats, give them money. Phone bank, those 3 seats are deep blue seats. We can win them. Keep moving forward. These are the 3 people we need in those seats. Of the 3, Gary might need your help the most. Gary's facing the most uphill battle of all of them. Cedillo, I don't know what's going on with her. Nina, she probably has the easiest cruising at the moment. That doesn't mean slack on her. We need all 3. If you can't give money, retweet their stuff, quote tweet, and then say, tell other people to donate. But these are the ones we need to focus on for this cycle. I know there are some mayoral and gubernatorial races, but this isn't about them. This is about the House of Representatives. But anyways, since there are people who are gearing up for 2022 right now, because it's not that far away, the House elections, they don't actually have that, they don't go on for that long. But anyways, we should be also taking a peek at 2022. Not that we shouldn't be focusing all of our attention on them yet, but we should be taking a peek, taking notes, making sure things are aight, make sure we have everything under control, and basically keep tabs on certain seats that we think we can win. Now, here's the thing. This was originally a challenge proposed to me by Niall Elcom on one of his shows. Basically, he said, get all of the worst Democrats in the House, and then basically let people know who they are to primary them. But here's a problem with that notion, and this is just the de facto, notion of a primary challenge. Primary challenges, let's be real, let's just be real for a second here. Primary challenges rarely work. Hakeem Jeffries, or one of those other, corporate media sellout people, was saying, Ed Markey won? It's almost as if, 90% of incumbents win. That's just the truth. Being the incumbent gives you a huge advantage, and primarying them isn't necessarily the best. It's not the worst option, obviously, but it's not the option that will guarantee the best, too many successes. Because let's be real, if you look at the results of the 2020 elections, a lot of primaries were just like, come on. Like, let me list some of the primaries that happened in 2020. Okay, in Florida 23, the big one that everybody pays attention to, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Jen Perlman got 28%. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, 72%. Joshua Gothamer, 66% to Ariti Karibichi's 33%. Frank Pallone, 79% to Russ Cicerone's 17%. Albio Ceres got 70% to Hector Oseguera's 27%. You get my point. A lot of incumbents just slide on by. They get, just go through. But don't let that discourage you. Need I remind you, Elliot Engel won his 2018 primary with 73.7% of the votes. Lacey Clay beat Cory Bush by 20 points in 2018. Dan Lipinski barely scraped by Marie Newman's primary challenge in 2018. And Ro Khanna lost by 3 points against Mike Honda in 2014 before steamrolling him and beating him by 22 points in the following election. Ultimately, you never know when you're going to win until you win. So don't let that discourage you. But I will point out some races that I do believe could be winners. Based on the numbers, we can see that these races weren't as bad as we think they are. These are races that if a progressive tries hard enough, we could flip a seat. We could successfully primary an incumbent Democrat, or we could successfully flip a swing seat. Because I decided to make this episode a little less bleak, I'm going to include the flippable GOP seats that a Democrat who could easily be a progressive could easily flip. One other thing I will say is we should also focus on open seats. A second a seat opens up, progressive needs to go there. Munder Jones. People were looking at his seat, it opened up in a second, and then all of a sudden, he's in the seat now. And to a lesser degree, Richie Torres. He was seen as a sort of primary winner progressive type. And in Massachusetts District 4, there was a somewhat progressive primary person. It wasn't a primary, but it was a progressive person who was running for the seat. Got close, but a corporatist went out because there were 4 people vying for the progressive vote. And people were a bit confused on who was real, but I don't know. But basically, let's move on to the main topic and discuss the potential seats progressives could win based on the numbers. Let's start off with the GOP swing seats. The seats that, more random moderate progressives, not moderate progressives, but moderate Democrats could try and join with us. First, we have 4 from California. They were the 4 California seats that flipped progressive, then when they became not progressive, they flipped back. David Vallado in California District 21, Mike Garcia in California District 25, Young Kim in District 39, and Michelle Steele in 48. Now, let me explain the story behind these seats, because a lot of people seem to forget about the story of the seats. These 4 seats, plus 3 more, were part of a 7 seat flip from red to blue in California in 2018. The people who won in those seats were Mike Levin in District 49, Katie Porter in District 45, Josh Harder, but I forget where his district is, TJ Cox in District 21, Katie Hill in District 25, Jill Cisneros in 39, and Michael Rauda in District 48. All of these individuals ran under progressive populist-like rhetoric in the election, in 2018. Either explicitly, for example, explicitly stating they supported Medicare for all, or saying something similar. For example, Harder, Porter, Hill, Levin, they explicitly stated, we support Medicare for all. People like Cisneros, Rauda, and Cox were more the people that would say, like, oh, I believe healthcare is a right, but don't explicitly state that they support Medicare for all. Dianne Feinstein did the same thing. She stated that she was, like, healthcare was a human right to her, but she does not support Medicare for all. Come 2020, some of these guys made it explicitly clear which side of the aisle they sat on. Porter, Harder, Levin, and Hill stayed true to their messaging and stated that they supported Medicare for all. Meanwhile, Cox, Cisneros, and Rauda went full-on right-wing, and Hill was actually forced to resign for unrelated reasons. And then she got replaced with a different candidate come the 2020 elections, Christy Smith. So technically, now that has 8 people. But here's the thing. See, 4 of them chose not to run on Medicare for all, and they lost. 4 of them chose to stick with their Medicare for all message, and they won. In fact, 3 of them won twice. Levin, Porter, and Harder, they're still in the House of Representatives right now. And that is exactly why, things aren't looking so hot. And I mean, these races, they were incredibly close. 3 of these seats are 50-49, and the other one is 51-48. So I think it's still the same margin. No, that's not true. My brain's messed up, or I don't know. Yeah, it is. But anyways, basically what I'm saying is they're close margins. Like, these are really close margins. A progressive can easily sweep up, and win the seat, potentially. The next 2 are 2 Florida seats. Carlos Jimenez in Florida District 26 and Maria Elviar Salazar in 27. These were the 2 seats that, Donna Shalala and Debbie Mariskin-Powell flipped the people. They also won. It was a 51-48 loss for both of them. Again, pretty close margin. These are potentially flippable seats, especially considering Florida may be getting a certain individual who will run on the top of the ticket. So, could be interesting to see it go around. Now, the next 2 seats that are really flippable, these 2 should be really easy. 2 seats in Iowa. Iowa District 2 and Iowa District 1. You see, I wanted to put Iowa District 4 because J.D. Schulten, but J.D. Schulten, he didn't do so hot the second time around, but that was because, it wasn't as scary with the Steve King. But hey, J.D. Schulten, you can run for Senate. I'd support you there. But the thing about Iowa District 1 that's interesting is that it was actually a Democrat seat for, a long time. There was a Democrat that, held the seat for a while and easily won most of the times. But the second he decided he was going to retire, nah. It was by a slim margin too. Again, 51-48. But Iowa District 2 is way more interesting. It's a 49-49 split. In fact, technically, it's still being decided right now. The person who's in it right now, Marionette Miller Meeks, she was only chosen to be sworn in because Nancy Pelosi didn't want to have 2 House seats that were potentially, worrisome. So yeah, this is a very easy win. The Democrats nearly won the seat twice. Maybe if they get the right person, it'll work. Maybe Jody Schulten should move to these seats. The next seat is Missouri District 2, Ann Wagner. There was a 5-point difference between her and her opponent, 50-45. This seat was also really close at one point. Democrats were close to taking this one. They just needed Cory Bush to push them over the edge. Now, this is one that I was weirdly hesitant to try and pick. Should we pick people who won certain seats or people who didn't win certain seats? Should we suggest rematches? But I will suggest this rematch. Don Bacon in Nebraska District 2, 50-46. Maybe this is just because we need a third time's the charm. If Cory Bush can do it, Carrie Eastman can do it too. Or if you want to be one of those sticklers, maybe you could say, maybe it's time to put a new face on there. But who cares? If Carrie Eastman just paved the way for the next person to beat him, sure. The next seat is Jeff Van Drew. It was a 51-46 swing for him. He was originally a swing district. He was a swing Democrat. And his whole thing, when he first ran, was he was going to be a working class populist. Just just build that energy and then channel it into a left winger. Of course, the person who actually ran against him didn't win. He was trying to run a Kennedy. You see, it wasn't going to work. You need a working class movement. The next one is New Mexico District 2, Yvette Harrell. The seat, it was originally 3 Democrats. Now it's a Republican. It was a 53-46 split. So it wasn't that. It was probably the furthest than any of the most of the people on here. But, it's still potential winnable. A Democrat did represent it at one point, so it is technically winnable. The next one is Richard Hudson, a similar split, 53-46. But this one was very interesting. I remember seeing ads about this race because it was actually, pretty notable, especially considering this was sort of a surprise. They didn't think this seat would actually be winnable. They thought District 11 would be the winnable one, but it turns out that wasn't the case. The next one is Oklahoma District 5. It was again a very winnable seat, and there's a progressive literally sitting there who could potentially win this seat. This one's definitely low priority. Like I said, you need to pay attention to the priority seats. Pay attention to those California seats, or pay attention to the Iowa seats. Those ones are the top priorities. Except for this one. This one's also one that could potentially be a top priority because we know an individual who's there. Texas District 10, Mike McCall, and we have the challenger already, Mike Siegel, 52-45. It's a potential flip, but, Anyways, now here are the ones that are the big ones you should pay attention to. The Democratic primary seats. Now, this shows how interesting the Democratic primaries turn out. There are really only 3 that I can pinpoint that are winnable against pretty bad incumbents. But it's fine, we can live with that. 3 more seats is 3 more seats. First, we have one that I wasn't exactly expecting. Jimmy Gomez of California District 34. He's not as unknown because he's progressives are trying to get rid of him twice. Kenneth Mejia and David Kim. The split was actually very noticeable, 52-47. Pretty close, actually. I'd say maybe if we get one more big primary challenger, we could potentially win. Remember the hashtag Bernie endorse Kim? Maybe we just need that. We just need an AOC to endorse an incumbent, a primary challenge to Jimmy Gomez. Now this next one, it was technically a 3-person race, but you'll see what I mean when I mean. Carolyn Maloney of New York District 12. Now she's interesting. Her race was technically a 3-way race, but what's noticeable is the numbers. 42-39. That is a very, very close margin. Now, like I said, it was a 3-person race. The progressive actually got 3rd place with 13%. The person who got 2nd place was an Obama, similar to progressive type. But it does show maybe Carolyn was this close to losing. Maybe if you just get Lauren to run again and then double the ads, maybe you can get it so that not only is she swapped to 2nd place, but then maybe she gets swapped to 1st place. Now the last one is one that it was way back at the beginning. The first Justice Democrat of this 2020 election cycle. The race between Henry Cuellar and Jessica Cisneros. That was a 51-48 seat split. People got, sad that she lost, but we need not forget, he was really close to losing. Maybe she just needed, a Cori Bush. Cori Bush and Marie Newman, Marie Newman's probably a closer example. Maybe they just needed they just needed to run around again. She was this close to beating him. Nancy Pelosi had to, show up at the last second to rile up support for him. If we just try again and get our name out there faster, we could win. We could try and win. And I did a quick dig, and it turns out Queller, he's known for having close races, so it's not like this is one out of the ordinary. We could try it again. And maybe with a different person, and maybe we just try a little harder this time. Anyways, that's all I gotta say on this topic. Might not have all the best wins at the moment, but I mean, Senate is probably where we're gonna get more wins if we try. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, or check out my articles on the Independent Political Report.